Compliance with company timesheet requirements resulted in 40% pay increase. Reposted with my correct account. The background. I have been a freelance contractor for over 30 years. UK. And worked for many companies. Usually on an hourly or daily rate. About 10 years ago I had the opportunity to work for a client on a 6-month contract on a daily rate. And also to work from home except for some site visits for meetings. Since I was working from home I was able to work my own hours. I was judged basically on my output, not the bum hours on seat. I would work whenever I wanted. An hour here or there. Multiple breaks during the workday. And also sometimes at weekends whenever I felt like it. However, I ensured that I at least complied with the 40 hours a week minimum even though I was on a daily rate. The way that it worked on this contract was that I would submit my timesheet for my boss to sign. That would be sent to my agency and they would do all the work to create invoices to the end client and pay me based on how long I worked that week. I did not have to submit invoices to the agency. They used something called self-invoicing. Now, because of the hassle of trying to record all the start times for breaks etc., it was a pain to fill in the client's timesheet, which only allowed for 1 start time, 1 lunch break, 1 end time. So, because I was on a daily rate, I would just record a standard 9 o'clock to 17:30 start, stop and 30-minute lunch for every weekday, knowing I was putting in the hours and not cheating the client. This was all well for a couple of months. My boss would sign the timesheet. The agency would invoice the client and just send me the money each month. At some point I would reconcile my books noting the payments against my days worked. The compliance. At some point my boss balked at how I was filling in my timesheet and asked for it to be more detailed. This was where the malicious compliance took over. I would carefully record all the periods I was working, which I did anyway, and then create a timesheet for the week. This resulted in several pages of timesheets rather than the previous 5 lines. Now showing all periods I worked, all breaks I took, total hours for each day, total hours for the week. My boss would need to check all of this and sign it, and we continued that way for a while. The fallout. Now you may think this was only a small malicious compliance. It took me extra effort to comply. My boss got the detailed timesheet he required and nothing changed. However, there was an unexpected consequence of this compliance which was rooted in the contract I had signed, and the contract that the client had signed with the intermediate agency. It came down to the definition of a working day. Remember, I was on a daily rate, not an hourly rate, even though the client insisted on a breakdown of all my hours. After a few months, when I tried to reconcile my own company's books, it seemed that I was getting paid more than I expected. 40% more to be precise. When I investigated, it turned out that I had overlooked my contract that stated that I was paid a full day's contract rate irrespective of how many hours I worked on that day. So if I happened to work 10 hours, say, I would just get the day rate. But if I worked for only an hour, I would still get the full day rate. Since I was now giving a timesheet that also detailed the few hours I might work on Saturday and Sunday, as well as the 5 work weeks, even though I was still only working a total of 40 hours, I was getting paid for 7 days rather than 5 days. I decided not to bring it to the notice of my boss, since I doubt he had visibility of the invoices. He was just signing off my timesheet every week. This resulted in an unexpected pay rise for the final couple of months of my contract. I just wish I had complied earlier in my contract. I'm just impressed that someone actually read your contract and applied the agreed-on rate. I had a job once where the owner got a timesheet because one guy was consistently late. After 2 pay periods of paying 6 of the 9 other employees overtime, the timesheets mysteriously disappeared again. Ha! Similar story here. We have a client who, like all clients, suddenly decided earlier this year that because they needed to cut the cost of their contract with us, they needed more detail about what me and my team were working on during the day. I mean literally to the point where we have to put 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. work detail, and so on with a description of what we were working on. Prior to that I had been decent about it, breaking down my work by category and trying my best to make sure I logged the hours. Of course, it didn't have the desired effect at all. I started logging everything, including a lot of stuff I previously would have let go. My job requires travel just about every other week, so all of a sudden they ended up with timesheet entries like 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., packing for work mandated trip, and as well as mileage to customer sites. I was putting on time entries for 7:15 a.m. to 8 a.m. drive time to customer site. In fairness, they still haven't backed down, and I do know for a fact other members of my team and other teams have done similar stuff, and the amount the customer is paying went up. I had also been paying out of pocket for seat upgrades to Plus level on flights. But when they started the penny pinching, I decided to hell with it and started throwing them in there too. My manager got on the phone with me after I started the more detailed timesheets and just laughed, particularly at the packing one. He advised me to instead put in trip preparation, just to keep the accountants happy, so I did. But didn't tell me not to keep doing what I was doing. Got a sudden pay raise because I am paid hourly, smiley face. I work in tech and have for 15 years. I know what I'm getting out of my people, so micromanaging hours for contractors has always been stupid to me. If you have good people, then I will guarantee you what you are getting charged more than likely is less than what is worked. Mainly because as a contractor, if you worked 41 to finish something for the week, you usually wind up charging 40. If you work significantly over, you tell the client and get it set up to bill over 40. It's possible your boss also liked you. People will overlook lots of things if they like you. The detailed timesheets may have been a pain in the ass, but I'd guess totaled they would only amount to half an hour each week. And for that time you got that extra 40%. Sounds like the client was complaining about lack of detail in your timesheet, so your boss let them have a more difficult timesheet in return for the contract being followed. Proper. Great boss, honestly. Nice work. I worked at a healthcare agency that did it this way. I got a 20% commission on day rates, so even when the client was being pedantic due to company policy, candidates like yourself made it so worth it. This happened to me and the boss was not impressed. He stormed over and demanded to know why the agency had billed him more. Turned out that if you do more than 7.5 hours a day, it bills as overtime. One day I worked like 5 hours. The next I worked 10 hours. And it billed 5 hours at my normal rate and 7.5 hours of the next day normal rate and 2.5 hours at the overtime rate. After that I just put 9 to 5 every day. I have been in IT now for over 20 years, working lots of it as a contractor. I know the pain of minute details in timesheets. I also have been on the other side, approving invoices. I would have had lots of questions about the 40% increase and what was going on there. Good luck with it though. This really isn't malicious compliance. This is more like I've been screwing myself out of money for my entire contract and my boss was cool enough to catch it. Seems like if you were a freelancer you'd have some clue about how your rate was calculated. Are you sure you're not an employee of a consulting company? I own a custom car, truck and motorcycle shop. I need my people to give accurate times for work performed on the vehicles so I can bill the customer. One person may have 2 hours on one car, 3 hours on another and 2 hours on another car. All my people are salary paid so they get paid the same no matter how many hours are noted. They are all highly skilled and honest about their timesheets and I do give weekly bonuses for good work done. I've never had to tell any of them that they are underproducing and they are compensated for overtime based on an hourly rate. Some of them have told me about being offered other job elsewhere, but that because of the way I treat them they wouldn't consider going somewhere else. Makes me feel good to have such a loyal team. You should always know the rules so you can work them to your advantage. Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. They were legally required to follow employment terms and honor the terms of the contract. You basically screwed them by working on days you were not expected nor intended to. It's hard to call this malicious compliance when this was a direct result of you abusing lack of accountability from a private setting for a financial windfall. And if your manager had been alerted about the payout adjustments he almost surely would've instructed you to work MF because you most likely cost them that client long term. This is how a lot of companies avoid paying overtime or premium time, i.e. nights or weekends. Delicious compliance. The miracles of literacy. I have contracted off and on for over 27 years. Like you, I would always bill for 5 days regardless of the hours worked. In general things evened out. Leave early one day, stay late another. I have never had someone quite as bad as you, but I did get a phone call from my boss one Sunday evening asking if I could log on and check why something was failing. I pointed out that I would be charging a day just for logging on, at which point he said he would see if someone else was available. I worked somewhere else where the boss would always ask the contractors to do the weekend work because they would get paid for it, but the permanent staff would not. It was seen as part of their job. The best one I had though was pre-2000 when I was doing a lot of traveling. Most of the time I needed to be somewhere like New York for Monday morning meetings, so I would leave on a Sunday. I was charging hourly and I would bill from the moment I left my house in London to the moment I got into my hotel room. 2 hours to Heathrow. 8 hours sitting on a plane. 1 hour going through baggage reclaim and border control, and then at least 1 hour from JFK to the center of Manhattan.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.